These Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them. So may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us, as their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light. So may we, in our own day, be among those who kindle light. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. All right. I'm going to continue with Hila Ratzby's 18 Shabbat blessings for peace in Israel and Palestine. May this light embrace all who are suffering through war. May this light spread and reach toward the hostages, wrapping them in a protective embrace. May this light illuminate paths of safety and shelter for the people of Gaza. May this light shatter barriers separating food and aid from innocent civilians. May this light open space for the people of Israel and Palestine to process their grief and anxiety. May this light break open the barriers in our hearts. May this light soften anger and fear. May this light erase thoughts of revenge. May this light give us strength to stand up against extremists in power. May this light hold gently the traumas of our past and the traumas of our present. May all the people who call Israel and Palestine their home come together to grieve and witness each other's pain. May we transform our grief into solidarity. May our solidarity pave the way for a shared future. May we nurture the divine spark in ourselves. May the spark shine out to include our families, friends, neighbors, and all who live on earth. May the divine light from before creation inspire us to choose life. May this light empower us to build the future we want to see. May this light guide us on the path toward healing and peace. Continue on page 123. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu. V'shabbat kodsho be'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu, zikaron lema'aseh v'reshit, ki hu yom techilah lemikrahei kodesh, zecher litziat Mitzrayim, ki vanu v'charta v'otanu kidashta im kol hamim, v'shabbat kodshecha v'yahava uvratzon hinchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh haShabbat. L'chaim. All right. Let's continue on page 127, where we'll read together in English. There are days when we seek things for ourselves and measure failure by what we do not gain. On Shabbat, we seek not to acquire, but to share. There are days when we exploit nature as if it were a horn of plenty that can never be exhausted. On Shabbat, we stand in wonder before the mystery of creation. There are days when we act as if we cared nothing for the rights of others. On Shabbat, we remember that justice is our duty and a better world our goal. So we embrace Shabbat, day of rest, day of wonder, day of peace. Going to continue forward on page 138 with Lecha Dodi. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, penei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, la la la, penei Shabbat nekabela. Shamor vezachor bedibur echad, Ishmianu el ha-meyuchad, Adonai echad, Ushemo echad, L'shem ultiferet, Ve'elitila lecha dodi likrat kala, B'nei Shabbat nekabela, lecha dodi likrat kala, la la la, B'nei Shabbat nekabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha ki makor habaracha merosh mikedem nesucha sof maseh machashav techila lecha dodi likrat kala P'nei Shabbat nekabela lecha dodi likrat kala la 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 P'nei Shabbat nekabela Mikdash Melech Ir melucha kum mitzei mitocha hafecha Rav lach shevet be'emek habacha vehu yachamol Alahayichem lalecha dodi likrat kala P'nei Shabbat nekabela lecha dodi likrat kala la 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 P'nei Shabbat nekabela Yamin usmol tifrotzi ve'et Adonai taritzi al yarish ben partzi ve'nismecha ve'nagila dodi likrat kala P'nei Shabbat nekabela lecha dodi likrat kala la 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 P'nei Shabbat nekabela Oi v'shalom ateret bala Gam besimcha uvetzhola Toch emunei am segula Boi chala lecha dodi likrat kala P'nei Shabbat nekabela lecha dodi likrat kala la 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 P'nei Shabbat nekabela. All right, folks, let's turn to page 140 for Psalm 92. Mizmor shir liyom ha-Shabbat tov lehodot lahadonai Ulzamer l'shimcha elyon, ulzamer l'shimcha elyon, lehagid baboker chastecha, ve'emunatecha balelot, alei asur v'alei navel, alei gayon bechinor mizmor shir liyom ha-Shabbat tov lehodot lahadonai ulzamer l'shimcha elyon ulzamer l'shimcha elyon ki simchatani Adonai befolecha B'masei yadecha ranei mizmor shir leyom haShabbat, tov lehodot lahadonai, ulzamer l'shimcha elyon, ulzamer l'shimcha elyon. All right, folks, going to turn forward now to page 145. Let's read together in English. Entrances to holiness are everywhere. The possibility of ascent is all the time, even at unlikely times and through unlikely places. There is no place on earth without the presence. I'm going to turn to 146 now. Please rise with me if you're able and comfortable doing so for the Baruch Hu. Baruch Hu et Adonai hamevorach. Baruch Adonai hamevorach leolam v'ed. Let's have a seat. And we'll continue on 149. Let's read together. Praise to you, Adonai our God, from whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars. Creator of the tide of time and light, you guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise to you, Adonai our God, from whom the evening flows. Baruch atah Adonai, Hamariv Aravim. Let's turn to page 150. Ahavat olam, Beit Yisrael, Amcha ahavta, Torah u'mitzvot, chukim u'mishpatim, otanu limadata, Halkeinu Adonai Eloheinu b'shochbeinu v'kumeinu, nasiach b'chukecha, v'nismach b'divrei toratecha, uv'mitzvotecha le'olam v'ed, ki hem chayenu, v'orech yameinu, uvahem negeh yom hamvalala, v'ahavatcha al tasir, mimenu le'olamim, Baruch atah Adonai, ohev amo Yisrael. Going to turn to 152 now. Please rise again with me if you're able and comfortable doing so for the opening of the Shema. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed. Let's have a seat. And we'll continue on 154. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol mildecha ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavcha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'veitecha uv'lechtecha v'derech uv'shochbecha uv'kumecha u'kshartam le'ot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot b'neinecha u'chtavtam al mezuzot beitecha uv'isharecha למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת. Let's continue on 157 together. In a world torn by violence and pain, a world far from wholeness and peace, give us the courage to say, Adonai, there is one God in heaven and earth. The high heavens declare your glory. May earth reveal your justice and love. From bondage in Egypt we were delivered. At Sinai we bound ourselves to your way. Inspired by prophets and instructed by sages, time and again we overcame oppressive forces. Though our failings are many and our faults are great, it has been our glory to bear witness to our God, keeping alive in dark ages your vision of a world redeemed. Let us continue to work for the day when the nations will be one and at peace. Then shall we rejoice as Israel did, singing on the shores of the sea. Page 158. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nidar b'kodesh, nora tehilot osefala. Malchutecha ra'u v'necha, bokei hayam lifnei Moshe u'Miriam, ze'elianu ve'amru, Adonai himloch le'olam vo'ed. V'nemar kifad Adonai et Yaakov, u'ge'alom yad chazak mimenu, Baruch atah Adonai Gal Yisrael. Let's read on 161. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Adonai, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up waiting to do your will. Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukat shalom aleinu, v'al kol amo Yisrael, v'al Yerushalayim. All right, folks, we're going to turn to page 164 now. I'll invite you to rise with us if you're able and comfortable doing so for the beginning of the Amidah. Adonai sifatai tiftachu fi yagid tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Page 166. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor ve'hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Ve'konei Hakol, Ve'zocherach Shtei Avot ve'imahot, Umevi geula livnei v'nei Haman Shemo be'ahava, Melech Ozer u'Moshia u'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham v'Ezrat Sarah. Atah Gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechaye metim atah Rav l'Hoshia, Morid hatal. Mechalkel chayim bechesed, Mechaye metim berachamim rabim, Somech noflim verofei cholim, Umatir asurim, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר, מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומיתו מלך, מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה לחיות מתים. Baruch atah Adonai mechayei hametim. All right, folks, feel free to have a seat. Let's read together on page 171. Days pass and the years vanish, and we walk sightless among miracles. God, fill our eyes with seeing and our minds with knowing. Let there be moments when your presence, like lightning, illumines the darkness in which we walk. Help us to see wherever we gaze that the bush burns unconsumed, and we, clay touched by God, will reach out for holiness and exclaim in wonder, how filled with awe is this place, and we did not know it. Baruch atah Adonai Ha'el HaKadosh. Let's read together on 173. May these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth. May all who struggle find rest on this day. May all who suffer find solace. May all who hurt find healing on this day. May all who despair find purpose. May all who hunger find fulfillment on this day. And may this day fulfill its promise. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh hashabbat. 174. Ritzei Adonai Eloheinu b'yamcha Yisrael, utfilatam b'yava tekabel, utehi l'ratzon tamid avodat Yisrael amecha, el karov l'chol korav, panei avodecha v'chonenu, shfoch ruchacha aleinu, v'techazen einenu b'shuvcha l'tzion berachamim, baruch atah Adonai amachazir shchinato l'tzion. Folks. So, as usual, for our Thanksgiving prayer, we'll give folks a chance to share something they're feeling grateful about this weekend. We'll begin with the English here that we'll be reading on page 176. And then if you'd like to share something you're feeling gratitude for, just raise your hand and Robin will come around with the microphone so you can speak. God of goodness, we give thanks for the gift of life, wonder beyond words, for the awareness of soul, our light within, for the world around us so filled with beauty, for the richness of earth which day by day sustains us. For all these and more, we offer thanks.
I'm very grateful this week to Carol Hers, who is on Zoom somewhere up there, who took me to the plastic surgeon this week for 2 procedures that I had to have something with my eye and a precancerous thing off my leg, both of which went well, but I was very grateful to have someone take me and make sure I got there and got home safe. I was okay, but better safe than sorry, so I'm really glad that she was able to do that for me.
Absolutely, I'm glad that worked out.
I am so glad that after the surgery, I'm definitely on the mend. On the 19th was the first day I decided to venture out driving my car, did very well. And yesterday, I actually decided to do something a little bit more, and I mowed my entire lawn, and I also attacked the weeds on the side of my house on my hands and knees with a little thing picking out all the weeds that were tenacious.
All right. Sounds like you're being pretty tenacious yourself. Glad that worked out.
Just a little thing, but I'm grateful that I was safe during some necessary travel the night before last and returning yesterday because it was kind of a long haul.
Yeah.
I am grateful that the building where STAP is, they have the most beautiful gardens, and I never pass up an opportunity to walk over and see them. So if anybody's around during the day, take a chance and go look at the flowers. They're beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, I see her. Maureen.
I'm really grateful that my husband and I got to spend a delightful day at the New York State Fair with our grandchildren. It's so much fun just to walk and talk and see what's there, but the biggest thing is just spending some quality time together. And I'm really grateful that we have the chance to do that.
Absolutely, that sounds lovely. All right, folks, I think that's everybody. Let's finish up down at the bottom. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha, ulchanai lehodot. Going to continue finally onto page 179, and let's read together in English. Grant us peace, your most precious gift, O eternal source of peace, and give us the will to proclaim its message to all the peoples of the earth. Bless our country as a safeguard of peace, its advocate among the nations. May contentment reign within our borders, health and happiness within our homes. Strengthen the bonds of friendship and fellowship among all the inhabitants of every land. Plant virtue in every soul, and may the love of your name hallow every home and every heart. Praised are you, Eternal One, who blesses our people with peace. Baruch atah Adonai, hamivarech et amo Yisrael b'shalom. All right, folks, let's take a moment for our own personal prayers and reflections, and then we'll join back together. Ose shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel. Ose shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, ve'yimeru amen. Going to turn forward now to page 371 for the Misha Berach for healing. This evening we're praying for Raphael Alieti, David Ben Esther, Terry Bennett, Dan Binbudel, Thomas Brophy, Tom Brown, Lester Bergman, Louis Calcetera, Tegan Christofferson, Keith DePan, Elsie Deutsch, Lou Ellen Egan, Lauren Furman, Sandra Gutman, Robin Haas, David Hecht, Sheila Hickok, Sarit Katsu, Sharon Kirshheimer, Helen Lewis, Jim Mason, John Muller, Vicki Neiman, Rowan Nociolino, Jeremy Orden, Manny Orden, Robin Orden, Grayson Porter, Ken Roberts, Jim Rosenstein, Sherry Schwartz, Shmuel Emut Ruvain Bibet Avraham Visara, Jennifer Stile, Rabbi Lance Sussman, Liz Sussman, Timothy Swindell, Dick Watanabe, Rhonda Waxman, Elena Witter, Phyllis Young, Eugenia Zaroli, and Jaeger Zopp. If you'd like to add anyone's name to our prayers tonight, just raise your hand. We'll get around to it in a second.
Carol Allen Story, Joan Wagner.
Thank you.
Tony DiGirolamo, my stepfather, and Elvin Barshmel Emmett Irving.
Is there anyone with their hand up on Zoom that I might not be able to see? Misha Beirach Avoteinu Mekor HaBracha Laimotenu. May the source of strength Bless the ones before us. Help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mishabeirach imotenu, mekor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shalema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. Praying for a refuah shalema, a complete and speedy recovery to all those we're holding in our hearts this evening. All right, folks. I'm going to take just a moment here for a few words of Torah. We are on Parashat Shoftim this week, which begins, Shoftim b'shotrim titein lecha. You shall appoint for yourselves judges and magistrates to attend to the people, to judge in the cases, to make sure that the rules are enforced. And I think that there is something interesting about the phrasing here. Titein lecha, you shall appoint for yourselves, echoes a similar lecha, a shalach lecha, a send out for yourselves, which we find way back in Parashat Shalach in the story of the spies who were sent out to scout out the land. And what the Midrash traditionally says about that lecha, send out for yourselves, is that it implies send out for your own sake, for your own benefit. In other words, this wasn't something that God needed the people to do. It's something that the people were doing for their own benefit because they felt they were unsteady in their belief that they could actually manage to carry out this project of going into the land and taking possession of it. And so they felt the need to send out these spies to go and take a look at the land for them. And of course, what we know from that story is it didn't end up working out so well, right? Those spies come back, they bring back a bad report, the people get spooked, and then the whole thing gets put on hold in the end for another 40 years, or another 38 years at any rate. And I think that the appointing for yourselves here, right, carries a similar kind of ambivalence that we find perhaps in that earlier lecha, for yourselves. The Torah recognizes the necessity of order, of maintenance, of administration. This is not simply a religion of personal piety that it is setting up here. It's attempting to set up a moral and ethical community. And a community requires some amount of organization. That's just how human beings are. But at the same time, the Torah also remains fundamentally uncomfortable with hierarchy, which often tends to go along with our efforts to enforce order and maintain our society and administrate our communities. This discomfort with hierarchy is perhaps not at all surprising as an attitude to see with regard to a people that had just escaped from slavery. A little later on in this same parsha, it very clearly states, don't go back that way again. Don't go back to Egypt. And that isn't just a geographical statement, right? It's a statement it's an existential statement. You've already been enslaved. Do not enslave yourselves. Do not build yourself another Egypt in which to be caught up. It doesn't matter whether this Egypt is the work of your hands and not the work of others. Don't go back that way again. And so we've got this concept here of necessary order, of a group cohesion, but suspicion of hierarchy, suspicion of any set of institutions that holds one individual up over another. And that concept of order without hierarchy is an important one, but it's so difficult for most of us to really grasp. It's the most natural thing in the world. You look around, people generally tend to work well together. We're a social species. We get on well with others. Compared to many other kinds of animals in this world, humans are remarkably good at getting on well with others. We're remarkably good at figuring out what needs to be done and simply doing it. We're remarkably good at seeing a need and filling it. And we're remarkably good about feeling compassion for our fellow human beings. We sometimes forget that fact, but we need to remind ourselves that despite all of the ways in which those capacities fail us so frequently, we're remarkably good at those things. But that's hard for us to know in our hearts, because it doesn't come naturally for us to trust in our own or others' ability to create order, to engage with one another in a productive way without hierarchy. We believe we need a hierarchy. We believe we need someone over us telling us what to do, and because of that belief, we create hierarchies. But that belief is not necessarily a rational belief. The hierarchy and the organization don't necessarily go together. And so part of what's going on here in the Torah is an effort to figure out how to create a community that is cohesive, that works together, that supports one another, that takes care of one another, without necessarily creating systems of hierarchy that elevate a particular person or a particular group into the status of the dominating hierarchy, the dominating authority who is fundamentally better than you and knows better than you and is going to take care of you so long as you bow and scrape and bend the knee to that person. A lot of people just don't want to accept that they're capable of self-governance, because the reality of the depth of our own responsibility in this life is just too uncomfortable to really face. That fundamentally, it's on us, and it's for us that we act and that we move and that we work. And we may feel comforted by the idea that there's someone at the top telling us what to do. But fundamentally, it's us who's actually making those decisions and taking care of the thing and making things work. If it weren't, if we really did need to be told what to do all the time, then I don't think society would ever actually work the way that it does. Because nobody can ever, there can never be any quantity of judges and magistrates, of kings and overlords. There can never be enough of those people to really make society work if we weren't fundamentally built to simply do the work ourselves. And so in place of hierarchy, the Torah presents us with law. One law for everybody. One law for the stranger as for the citizen. One law for the privileged as for the powerless. One law. This is the Torah's ideal. The very opposite of privilege, which in its etymological roots evokes the idea of private law, of a different set of rules for me and for you. In place of that idea of privilege and hierarchy, the Torah establishes a system of laws that we're all supposed to buy into, and that we're all supposed to take to heart, that we're all supposed to study and care about, and that we're all supposed to take a certain amount of responsibility for. The area of greatest concern here, when it comes to privilege, when it comes to the tendency of individuals to act as if they were operating by a different set of rules than everybody else, has to do with the prospect of appointing a king over Israel. A prospect which various biblical texts look upon with extreme suspicion. Here in Deuteronomy, the Torah accepts that it's likely that at some point Israel is going to want to establish a monarchy, as do all the nations around you, as it says. Everybody else is doing it, so you're going to want to do it too, because people look to hierarchy as a justification for the order that they're already carrying out in their lives. But accepting this fact about people Rather than futilely seeking to prevent that impulse, the Torah tries instead to mitigate it by limiting the extent to which any king of Israel can elevate himself over the rest of his people by accumulating wealth and political power and military power. It says the king should not acquire so much gold, and should not acquire so many servants, and should not acquire too many wives, and should certainly not acquire too many horses. By horses, they meant, people rode horses, like that's military power at the time, right? The ancient equivalent of, warplanes and tanks. The king shouldn't be acquiring all of these things. And more than that, the king is supposed to have his own Torah scroll written, and to keep it close by and to read it all of his life, so that he can learn to revere God and to observe faithfully every word of this Torah and this laws, as the Torah says. The antidote to hierarchy, once again, is the establishment of one law, a single law that's supposed to apply equally to the king no less than to his poorest subject. This issue of hierarchy and privilege, and the question of our seemingly endless attraction to these things, despite how bad they are sometimes for our societies, for our moral health, for our well-being, has been with me a lot in recent months. Because we're seeing a lot of negative activity in our society these days, which personally I tend to trace back fundamentally to the root of humans' continual longing for hierarchy, that need to see somebody powerful and strong and attribute competence to that person, generally a man, and to do what that person says. Because we can't fundamentally accept in our own hearts this idea, this radical idea, that what actually makes society tick, that what actually makes people work together is not fear of the person at the top, but the concern and care of the people at the bottom. And so the question, for me at least, right now, and it's an ongoing question, I'm not really sure if I've got the answer to it. The question for me at least is this: how do we learn to accept our own role in making the world around us work? How do we learn to give up that craving for hierarchy, that craving to either be the person at the top or that craving to bow down to the person at the top? How do we find better ways to work together, better ways to make community together and establish norms together that don't necessarily involve giving all of this power to people purely because we like the idea of someone possessing power? And fundamentally, that question, I think, boils down to this, is how do we find the way to learn to be comfortable with the degree of responsibility that we bear for making things in the world around us work? How do we perceive the power that each of us has to understand, to take possession of the world around us and to build a shared world together? How do we learn to live without the ghost of hierarchy and authority in our heads to motivate us with fear? How do we learn to be motivated by something higher, to be motivated by care and concern and an understanding that there is and should be one law that applies to all of us? I don't know the answer to that question, but it's been with me quite a bit lately. And I think all I want to do for tonight is to share that question with you. And if you've got something that you'd like to reflect about it tonight, then please be my guest. I'd love to hear what you have to say. But I don't have an answer for this, and I don't think I ever will.
I think the thing that you said about people having to take responsibility is spot on. It's much easier for a lot of people to just pass the buck. That way, if something goes wrong, I sometimes joke that at my job, my whole purpose is there. Everybody knows what they're supposed to do is to be the one who's wrong because I made the decision. That's what it is with that. But there's also, I mean, and then the person in the top has a responsibility. I just have to laugh this week because I sometimes have us all take a vote on something. Our graphic, it's silly as it seems, our graphic artist came up with 2 versions with different colors of our Rosh Hashanah issue. So I did what I have always done over the years, is let everybody take a vote which one they like. She was fine with either of them. So I liked one, and the other 2 people in the office liked the other one, so I lost. But I have to be willing, the person in top has to be willing to lose. The people who aren't there have to be willing to challenge something that I say. I have that, which I say my workers keep me from being in trouble because they are willing to take the responsibility on. But it's very easy to say, well, you know, I don't want to be wrong. I don't want to do it. Let somebody else do it for me. And that, I don't know if it's something that we have to grow up with, if it's something that our families maybe also take part in, because did our parents let us be responsible for things, or were we shot down anytime we did it? I think there's a social and a probably personal familial aspect to both of it.
Probably so. Thank you. Holly, I see your hand up.
Okay, well, this is an issue that I deal with on a daily basis. Of course, all the laws apply to everybody, and it would be very nice if people could work out their disputes among themselves without the necessity of going to a judge. Every day, I say to people, like, do you really want a stranger deciding this case for you? Why, how about working these issues out yourselves? And it's very interesting to me that people want sometimes a person in authority to make a decision for them and their families rather than working it out themselves. And I don't understand why that is, because I'm only going to hear whatever facts are presented to me in a very limited way, and it's troubling to me that people can't work out their disputes, and I don't know why that is. So I just wanted to add that.
Thank you. I appreciate you sharing that. Ross.
So this goes back, I've talked about this before, this thinking that when you try to do something and it doesn't work out, we always label it's a mistake. But it's not a mistake. It really is a learning experience to move on to something, because you learned from that thing you did and you try something else. To me, that is like something I wish I knew when I was young. I try to pass it on to my kids now, my grandchildren, because I think it's so important. And I think it leads into the whole notion of self-esteem. Because if you come from your formative years where your parents and those around you give you a feeling that you are important, that you are loved, that you have the ability to take on things that are part of your world, that helps you to not turn to other people, but you have power yourself to make decisions and to try things. And if they don't work out, don't label them as wrong. Label them as the next step to try something else.
Thank you. I think we got a hand. Sylvia's got a hand up down here. In the meantime, Susan, do you want to weigh in?
Excuse me. I was dealing with a family situation, not my family, but as a lawyer this afternoon, and just what Holly was saying, I would add to that the people that are in these present disputes, there's such a whole history of the family going out, maybe sometimes over decades. So the judge can make a ruling on what's happening now, but they can't fix all the anguish that's gone on in the family. So that's really where the therapist needs to come in, and the lawyer and the judge have to get out.
That's probably true. Thank you. Sylvia.
I'm thinking in terms of making decisions and rules, and it comes to me as a teacher that we look up to people who are teachers, and then we learn from them, and we learn how to deal with problems.
Yeah. I've often thought about the metaphor for like we talk about there's a lot of king metaphors for God in Torah, right? And I've often thought about like teacher as an alternate metaphor for thinking about God, because maybe it's healthier to think about teachers than it is to think about kings, because a teacher is very much there to try and help you along in terms of building up your own resources to make decisions, right? And, you know, one could imagine a kind of ideal king that's more like a teacher, right? But like the operating metaphor here of teacher, I think sometimes feels more productive in a way than trying to, you know, think of God in a sort of royal kind of manner, precisely because of these issues around authority and responsibility.
I took over the care of my 2 girls after my wife and I separated as a single custodial parent. And they were at the time 4 and 6. And right up and through until they were teenagers, or middle to late teenagers, I always reinforced and told them how special they were, how amazing they were, how smart they were. And I had one experience with my youngest daughter. I forget what age she was at, but she was whatever. She asked me if she could do something, as if I should know. And I looked at her in shock, and I said, Sarah, I think you can do anything you put your mind to. There you go.
Thank you. Ross.
Interesting that you should bring up parenting, Bruce, because I was also thinking of this, as I often am, from a parenting perspective, and being the parent at this time of 4 young and youngish adult children. I definitely find that I'm sort of having to often remind some of them that, you know, I can provide advice, but, you know, ultimately the decision is in that person's hands, that now adult hands, and that I can say what I would do, but the decision and any consequences thereof is ultimately theirs. And I think that partially stems from not wanting, and this is similar to what other folks have said, but not wanting to make a mistake, and also the idea and sort of the comfort in having a fall guy that you can blame if something goes south.
Yeah, thank you. Jody, do you have your hand up there?
I was fortunate to have parents that would encourage us to be very independent from a young age, challenge ourselves. And my father's advice, which used to drive me crazy, was you will figure it out. And actually, as frustrating as that could be at different points in my life, he was right. I did figure it out. And some of those decisions are very difficult. And it's not about making a mistake. Nobody likes failure, but sometimes you're going to fail in life, and hopefully you'll learn from it. And if you don't, you don't. But, you know, and I've passed that on to my daughter, but always encouraged her to, you know, don't follow the herd. Do your own thing. And if you make a mistake, you're responsible. It's on you. It's not on me. It's not, you know, you don't blame others. You take responsibility for your actions. And she's a good kid. But I think that, you know, depending on yourself and being encouraged to stand on your own 2 feet, work your own issues out, go to, you know, others for mentors or whatever, you know, to get advice or to get a different perspective is always helpful. But I think that I see past generations have just been like so immature or so over dependent on their parents. It drives me crazy. But, you know, again, that you're not creating an independent, functional adult, and also, you know, doing for others and getting out of your own head. So that seems to work.
Thank you. Right. I want to thank everybody for all their thoughtful comments here. I'm always extremely happy and extremely impressed with the degree of engagement that I get from you all for these Torah discussions, especially knowing as I do that it hasn't always been the custom here at Temple Concord to do a discussion after the Devar Torah. But even as I am often impressed by people's willingness to kind of go along with me and engage with what I bring every week, right? I'm oftentimes I can never quite predict which things are going to really spark a lot of conversation, and it's always a delight to me and fascinating to me when something that I bring does spark this kind of engagement, because I know that you all are it feels really good to me that you all take the responsibility for yourselves of making Torah for yourselves and engaging with these questions from your own perspectives and with your own concerns in mind. And I think that that's a really beautiful thing, and also something that really speaks to the core of this tradition of liberal Judaism that we're all here in this community to uphold and sustain and to build together, in the same way that our ancestors are trying to build a community way back there in Deuteronomy we're looking at today. Okay, sure. Do you mind waiting for the mic just a sec? Evan's got it, he'll bring it up. Yeah, go for it, Bruce.
Just one other thing I did with my kids
Yeah?
that I thought was very important is I know it's not true of a lot of divorces, oftentimes there's a lot of animosity. But one of the things I try to stress with both of them is that your mother, you only have one. She's very important. You have to have her in your life. And you have to visit with her. One summer I had to she was talking about, I'm going to do this with this person, this with these girls, and this with this. I said, just make sure you make time for your mom, because that's a very important thing to do.
Yeah, it's an important lesson. Thank you. All right, folks. We're going to go back into the prayer book here at this point. We're going to turn to page 587, and I'll invite you to rise with me if you're able and comfortable doing so for Aleinu. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, latet gedula liotzer breshit, shehu sam chelkenu liached et shemo, v'gor aleinu lamlich malchuto, v'anachnu korim umishtachavim umodim lifnei melech malchei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu. Page 591. V'ne'emar v'haya Adonai l'melech al kol haaretz bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo echad. All right, please have a seat. We're turning to page 598 for the Mourner's Kaddish. This week we are remembering the death of Joseph Feldman, and we are remembering the yard sites of Janice Bergman, J. Robert Craner, Dorothy Decker, Nina Gabai, Jacob Kriegstein, Max Wolkoff, Lola Pell, Cecilia Goldenberg, Emil Goldenberg, William Regenbogen, William Strasberg, Irvin Rechtweg, Harold S. Unger, Linda Artis, Bell Polikoff Bedaines, Robert Evan Levy, Edward Nathan, Albert A. Aronson, Robert Zucker, and Dr. Leslie Major. Please rise if you're able and comfortable doing so for the Mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal ve'yitkadash shemei Rabbah. Bialma divra chirute viamlik malchute. B'chayechon uvyomechon u'chaye dechol Beit Yisrael. Ba'agala u'vizman kariv v'imru. Amen. Yehi shmei rabba mevarach le'olam ul'olmei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitalev v'yithalal shemei dekudsha b'richu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehi shalama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav hu yaseh shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, v'imru. Amen. May their memories be for a blessing. Please have a seat. So my brain is still a little bit mush from the from the illness I'm still trying to get over. So you'll have to forgive me as far as like announcement goes. I'm not going to be super detailed about it tonight. I do encourage you to take a look at our, at the weekly emails and they wrote and everything like that to kind of keep a tabs on what's going on. But like my brain just isn't up to remembering all of it. There's always a lot going on this time of year. Two big things that I'm going to mention. A couple things that I do need to mention. Thing one is high holidays are really coming up, folks. So if you have not by any chance gotten your information into the committee responsible for doing high holiday tickets, please do so, because we need to make sure everybody can get into the building for high holidays. It needs to do. I would probably be remiss if I did not say on Ross's behalf that the small but mighty temple choir that is starting to really kick into gear as far as getting ready for the high holidays here. If you or anybody you know might be interested in singing with them, there's still time to jump in. Some of the melodies are not like super complicated this year. There's a lot of opportunity to jump in and learn how to sing. You don't need to know how to read music. We're recording it all and putting it up online so you can listen to it and learn the music that way. So just throwing that out there. And the last thing I'm going to mention here specifically is, due to me still kind of trying to get over this crud and kind of ramping back up, things are going to be a little different tomorrow than what they ordinarily are scheduled to be. So we are still doing Torah study in the morning at 9:15. I'm probably not going to be up to leading prayers after Torah study because I just don't have the stamina for it. So Torah study is going to be 9:15 to 10:30, after which we'll probably be just heading home. And tomorrow evening, the board game night, which ordinarily we're doing the last Saturday evening of every month, it would have been this weekend. The board game night is canceled this time around. Once again, my apologies. I'm just not up. I don't have the stamina for it. Hopefully going to be continuing to improve and we'll be over that hump pretty soon. For everything else, please do take a look at the emails that we send out and the Neirot, which ought to be coming out for September pretty darn quick. And we're going to finish up. Oh, and I'll also say, remind you, sadly, I'm not going to be able to stick around for Oneg. Once again, just my stamina is not with me. We moved the challah over into the social hall. Can I get someone to volunteer to lead Motzi when everybody goes into the social hall? Great. Rachel, you got it. Robin was actually pointing at you. Okay, great, fine. Robin and Rachel will take care of it. We're good. Okay. We're going to finish up on 625 with the Adon Olam. Adon Olam asher malach b'terem kol yitzir nira le'et nasa v'chefzo kol azai melech shemo nikra ve'acharei kichlot hakol levado yimloch nora ve'u haya ve'u hove ve'u yiyeh betifara ve'u ואין שני, להמשילו להכבירה, בלי ראשית, בלי תכלית, ולא העוז והמשרה, והוא אלי, וחי גואלי, וצור חבלי ביצרה, והוא ניסי ומנוס לי, מנת כוסי ביום אקרא בידו, הפקיד רוחי, מאת אישן ויהירה, ואם רוחי גוויעתי, Adonai li velo ira. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Thank you so much for being here with us this evening. Thank you so much.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat